Hello and welcome to episode 17 of Cooking with Grief. I'm Chris, and as always I'm joined by my friend and professional goat hypnotherapist, Chris.
Hi there.
Hello, are you well?
I am well. How are you?
I'm well. I had my usual pre-podcast carbonara and I feel sluggish, but ready to podcast.
That's exactly what you want before recording. Just a nice general malaise of just sluggishness.
I think that's the tone our podcast gives off at this point, just a spiritual...
Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah. I mean, physically I look like that anyway, so it fits that my mood matches. So here's how the podcast works. Each of us gather two topics to talk about, only to get distracted, rambling on about our misspent youth and disappointing adult lives. They say life is a dream, and if that's true, then I want to stop dreaming about work emails and apologising to friends for not being in touch as much as I should be. But, this podcast isn't quite yet my personal therapy session, so instead, I'm going to ask Chris, what's your first topic for us this episode?
I'm going to ask you, who was Erebus, or Erebus, or...
You've picked a gap in my classical knowledge. I don't know. Please inform me, or unless that was the topic and it's just a one-question quiz.
No, well, that is the one question. But, Erebus was basically the personification of chaos and darkness and shadows and, just generally, not exactly the most positive of, spirits or whatever. So if you're going to name a ship to send on a expedition into the unknown regions of the Arctic Circle, what would you call your ship? So I lied. There's actually two questions.
Well, I'm guessing where you're going with this is that I probably shouldn't call it the SS Erebus.
You should not. Nor should you call it HMS Terror, which were the the two ships sent by the British in 1825 to search for the Northwest Passage. So basically to find a way through. I think it was basically looking to get from the Atlantic to the Pacific, like through the Arctic, to save time. But obviously that means going through the Arctic, north of Canada. And when I said 1825, I meant 1845. Just a mere 2-year difference. So, Royal Navy, they sent their ships, HMS Greek personification of chaos and HMS Terror. Unsurprisingly, they were lost with all hands. It was called the Franklin's Lost Expedition, is what it gets referred to as. It was originally just Franklin's Expedition. Basically, it went about as well as you'd expect for something clearly being named by somebody hoping for a horror film. 129 sailors in total, and they all perished. But not only that, when their remains were found 10 years later, frozen in the tundra, it turns out they'd tried to eat each other.
Well, if you're sailors on board a ship named after Maelstrom and Chaos, then you might as well think, well, the situation isn't looking good, fellas. Who's up for a spot of cannibalism?
Exactly. And the weird thing is, though, the eponymous Franklin, turns out, wasn't the best choice of leader, because he'd attempted to go through the Arctic, or been sent to the Arctic twice before, in these sort of naval duties. So the first time Franklin went, he got stuck by violent storms, and the ice was too thick to continue, so he had to turn back.
I mean, it's almost like, that is an eventuality you could expect from a trip to the Arctic.
Yeah, you'd think so. Then guess what happened the second time? He tried again. This time, however, they got stranded on the ice, ran out of food. One of the sailors apparently tried to, he successfully killed and ate some of his colleagues. And
colleagues, plural. That's a hell of a meal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, got to keep going. Whilst Franklin apparently survived by eating shoes.
Were they made of blubber in those days? Were they?
They were made of leather. And, they were... you could tell they were probably quite spicy. Because they had a bit of a kick.
Oh, if this whole topic was a justification to lead up to that.
Yeah. I started with that and worked backwards. I was like, I'm going to make a joke about this, and then I'm just going to find a story that perfectly sets me up.
I both respect and detest that.
But yeah, so basically, those were his first 2 attempts. Bear in mind, this wasn't like some like self-funded explorer desperately trying to do something, off his own back. He was assigned to these missions. So they'd assigned him twice so far, and they'd got, he had a 50% cannibalistic crewman rate and like a 0% success rate. And yet they still assigned him, although apparently because he was third choice, but the previous 2 declined for this final one. But still, he was third choice. What does that say about the rest of the candidates?
Because either he was a relative of someone much higher up in the Navy who's willing to overlook his 2 previous disastrous attempts.
Which, let's be honest, in Victorian Navy was almost certainly the case.
Yeah. Either or he's the greatest salesman who ever lived if he managed to talk his way onto a 3rd expedition, having absolutely butchered the first 2.
It takes skill. Yeah, it's one of the things that gets debated apparently was whether or not their food was, because it was all in like lead, like cans or whatever, and they think maybe the lead poisoning went people to go mad, but it probably wasn't. It was probably just shitty weather being stuck. It turns out that old Victorians were exactly as terrible and racist as we thought, because Charles Dickens, father of modern literature and whatnot, couldn't help but blame the Eskimos.
What, for not having more edible shoes?
Well, no, he said the idea that Englishmen would go crazy and starve and kill each other and eat each other is just ridiculous, and, that definitely wouldn't happen. So he said, with not a shred of evidence to to back this up, Charles Dickens wrote in his magazine, "No man can, with any show of reason, undertake to affirm that the sad remnant of Franklin's gallant band were not set upon and slain by the Eskimos themselves. We believe every savage to be in his heart covetous, treacherous, and cruel."
He didn't mince his words.
Again, not a shred of evidence that there were any Inuits or Native Americans or anybody around. Just that these people were trapped and isolated and ran out of food and resorted to, hunting the most dangerous game, which probably wasn't that dangerous when they were had scurvy and were
still
incredibly
defrosting,
malnutritioned. That was still his go-to answer was, nope, clearly they were just gallant and brave and doing what all good British men do, until they were obviously savaged by these savages that obviously don't know any better than to eat people. Well, now that we've, I think, successfully got lost, and hopefully before we start eating each other, less optimistic sounding way.
Move on. Just keep going.
Just keep going very quickly.
Plow through it.
Yep, so to speak. Will you, rescue us from the tundra that we're trapped in?
That was a slick segue, but your first topic did smoothly lead me on to my first topic, so I'm going to ask you, based on British culture and everything like that, what British stereotypes do you think actually hold up to be true?
We are very good at queuing. I would say as well that our stereotype... It's weird, we have 2 distinct stereotypes depending on... I think probably depending on whether or not you're American or European, which is either being sort of posh and reserved and stiff upper lip, or drunken louts.
Yeah, drunken football fans, yeah.
Yeah, and both to a certain extent hold true.
Yeah, I think definitely. So I think of, definitely politeness and I know people joke about how much of a fan of cups of tea we are, but do live in a society that genuinely doesn't function without the stuff.
No, although it turns out we're actually behind Ireland, or at least in per capita. We probably drink more just because there's a lot more Brits than Irish. But yeah, the per capita tea drinking is actually bigger in Ireland than Britain.
Oh, well, thank you for that bonus fact. But yeah, so based on the sort of American Americanized stereotype of us, the, Hugh Grant, polite, sort of stiff upper lip, emotionally repressed sort of Brit. This is my candidate for the most British apology of all time. So on the 11th of May, 1812, a man named John Bellingham spent the morning writing letters and visiting his wife's business partner. In the afternoon, he accompanied his landlady and her son to the European Museum in the St James's district of London. It was at the museum that he remarked, "My apologies. There is an urgent matter to which I must attend before nipping over to Parliament and assassinating the Prime Minister."
Wait, we've had a Prime Minister assassinated?
Yeah, just the one. Spencer Perceval.
Yeah, I never knew that.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Like, I think just because of the way, like, pop culture sort of is so dominated by America, like, I could definitely tell you more facts and name more US presidents and which ones got assassinated and stuff than British.
Yeah, so the closest one was Thomas Becket being killed, but he wasn't Prime Minister. Like, that, I don't think that role technically existed. But yeah, Spencer Perceval was shot, and even he sort of he downplayed it pretty much. He was pretty nonchalant about it, because having been shot, he remarked, "I am murdered," and then collapsed to the floor. I mean, we can laugh about it because it happened a while ago.
Exactly. Comedy is tragedy plus time. So on that note, I don't know, I can't remember which war it was or who said it, but apparently, back again, Victorian times, during the war, somebody lost their leg, like, to a cannonball. Somebody was like, "By God, you've lost your leg." And apparently replied with, "By God, you're right."
Yeah, but the thing is, I think they're apocryphal, because what he probably actually said was, me fucking leg." Okay, so that's my first topic over and done with. Chris, what have you got for your second one?
You've watched Black Mirror, I think.
I have.
If you were planning a society, would you see Black Mirror as the things to do or the type of things not to do?
Well, they're all sort of cautionary tales, aren't they? So it's, I think Charlie Brooker, the showrunner, described it as imagining the future, if we're lucky, 5 years away, if we're unlucky, 5 minutes away. So I think with every episode, there's always an element of a technological advance that's good that then gets used in the wrong way. So in an ideal world, I'll take the good bits and have absolutely zero downsides, but nothing in life works like that.
Yeah, that is not the thinking of the Chinese government, apparently.
I'm not surprised.
And so, you have lived there, so you probably know more than I do. Yet I'm going to lecture you on it, because that's why I roll.
Does it count as mansplaining if it's man on mansplaining?
Phrasing. So yeah, in the news at the moment, at least at the time of recording, the actress Fan Bingbing has mysteriously disappeared. And she has 60 million social media followers on, was it Weibo?
Weibo, yeah.
Is that all right? Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it. The Chinese social media app. So 60 million followers. She's been the highest paid Chinese star for the last few years in a row. And she has just vanished. She's nobody knows where she is, but it came just after she received a 0% approval rating on the social responsibility report, which ranks Chinese celebrities based on their personal integrity and that type of stuff.
And upholding societal values and altruism and being a good role model to kids, I think.
Exactly. And so she gets that 0 score and then mysteriously disappears soon after, and nobody knows. And the one of the things was she might have been tax evading and stuff like that. But it's all part of China's new drive to basically judge everybody,
or at least to put a sort of a numeric score on being judged.
Yes, exactly. But a numeric score with consequences. Because basically they're rolling out a new social credit based on, everything. It includes, so apparently it's a trial scheme at the moment, and essentially you're under surveillance 24/7 based on, like every major city in the world nowadays is full of cameras. And, somewhere in some bright spark went, you know what, instead of using these for security, why don't we use these to really keep everybody under the thumb? And literally, it's things like, you'll be judged on, making sure you follow the laws and all those type of things. And one of the things you can get judged on is what type of products you buy. If you buy too much alcohol, that'll lower your score. Apparently, if you buy things like nappies, that suggests that you're socially responsible, family-based person. Apparently as well, based on this, your score will affect... it's a bit like the nosedive episode. Your score will directly affect what type of things, what type of options are available to you.
Yeah, just to explain, if you haven't seen that episode of Black Mirror, go and watch it. It's great. But then everyone is given a score out of 5, is it?
I think it is in that.
Or is it? Yeah. And then you rate people on sort of everyday interactions, so everyone's super superficially, nice to everyone because they don't want it to affect the score.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things in that episode is one of the drivers is the main character. He's trying to get a house in a nice area, but to get it, she needs to have the correct score. And that's exactly the same here. You'll be able to rent a house without a deposit if you have a high score. Whereas if you have a low score, they'll expect a deposit. Same, you'll get cheaper car rentals and hotel rooms.
A quick pass at the airport or reduced screening or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But even your the thing is, it's not even just what you do. It'll be stuff as well, like who you hang out with, your friends and partners and family are. So if your brother's a dick, it'll bring your score down with you.
So at least when this trail scheme moves to the UK, then we all mutually bring each other's scores down.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. One of the weirdest things about it, you know how most of these things, like dystopian nightmares, things tend to be packaged up as positive, and then all the negative stuff filters in through the back door. Everything's done in the name of security, and then you realise they've taken everything under your nose without you realising. It's always sort of PR and propaganda. At least you can't accuse the Chinese of being underhand, because they literally, in their the Communist Party's description of it, is it will allow the trustworthy to roam freely under heaven, while making it hard for the discredited to take a single step.
That is really laying your dystopian cards out on the bleak table.
Yeah, it's just hard to take a single... No, there is no redemption in this. If you make a mistake, you will be punished forever. And you'll make it it'll be a downward spiral, because everything will get harder.
Yeah, I mean, China has only recently had a middle class to emerge, and they seem to be really embracing massive cultural divisions between the classes. I mean, it has,
on the one hand, it is important for society, social cohesion, for people to not be dickheads. And so, you do understand that, but at the same time, it's borderline insane to be well, you've been a dick, so we're going to make it even harder. Which will then mean you're probably going to be in even more hardship.
Yeah, and I'm sure, donors to the Communist Party or people who are just rich genuinely, there will be no, leniency given on financial status. I mean, this is the sort of shit you can pull when you elect, a leader for life instead of having to worry about democratic elections every 4 to 5 years.
Exactly.
It's on the plus side, you can, if, you say, right, we need to build an airport, and they can just build an airport and they don't have to have it as a campaign pledge.
Yeah.
On the downside, you can introduce schemes like this.
Yeah. We were just saying then about the spiral, and and then you said about the important donors and whatnot will be protected. And in the opposite case, an investigative journalist called Liu Hu, who uncovered a corruption scandal in the Communist Party, and also helped solve some murder cases. But the government considered him enemy and charged him with a speech crime. He was made to publish an apology and pay a fine, but refused to pay the fine, so they blacklisted him, which just basically meant that he's had all these travel options blocked for him because he didn't have a high enough score. So if he tries to book train tickets from his hometown, it gets rejected because So he can't get a train ticket because his score's too low.
Yeah, it's essentially a no travel list.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing his name is banned from internet searches.
Yes. Oh, do you want to know what else is banned in from like searches and stuff in China?
Is it Winnie the Pooh?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it might be.
Because it's his internet nickname for President Xi is Winnie the Pooh. So yeah, Winnie the Pooh is just banned.
You know, conveniently, this is exactly the topic I did my uni dissertation on. Is that when a topic gets banned or a particular phrase, then people, to try and circumvent that, will invent new characters, which is a form of internet speak, essentially using brand new characters that will have some convoluted. It's almost like a meme in character form, in that it can be, you know, there'll be some. You've got to be in on the in-joke to sort of unlock the code of what this character means. And if you don't have it installed on your computer, it'll just come up as a box with a question mark in it. So it's one way for people to circumvent, you know, the blacklisted words, is being able to, if you know what the sort of code is, be able to talk about them sort of surreptitiously.
Yeah, very clever.
And I did my dissertation on, if anyone's interested. So there's like 6 semiotic principles that like define how characters got made in the first place, and my dissertation was about whether the new inventor characters like would hold up as genuinely like with the same linguistic principles as proper characters.
And do they?
Some of them. to cut my dissertation really short, to crunch down 2 years' work into, yeah, I guess at times.
And there we go.
You know, I want Black Mirror to remain a bit of fiction, because I can't even stand Facebook, let alone my every interaction. And also, I don't want to know what my...
Sorry,
I don't
finish this video by saying, please subscribe to us on Twitter. I'm just saying. Like, go off the grid,
you know,
go dark. But please subscribe.
Obviously,
like, delete everything.
Obviously, you know, the modern world is a sham and it's all just pain and chaos. But please interact with this thing that we are recording and putting out on the internet. And please give up your data to massive corporations in exchange for occasionally humorous tweets. From us, specifically.
Yeah. Yeah, so since we're now definitely on these blacklists, please give us your last topic before we're bundled off into a black van.
Okay, I'll try my best. Okay, so for my final topic, I'll start off with a question, as we often do. Chris, what's the saddest thing you've ever done? If that's not too personal, saddest as in pathetic.
There is a long, long list.
Well, I thought 2 for me, and hopefully that'll give you some time to think, seeing as I always spring these questions on you. So I've got 2. 1, and these are generally like so pathetic, I'm slightly ashamed to to tell you about them. So 1, once at uni, I ordered pizza, and it was so much pizza that it would have been unfeasible for one person to have ordered it. It was just me ordering it, because I'm a greedy little pig. But because I was so ashamed about how much food I'd ordered, when the delivery driver got there, I put music on in the living room, and then answered the door and called into an empty house saying, "Guys, pizza's here." Why did I care what the delivery driver thought? But I was right. And then the second one is even sadder, right? Again at uni, it was one of my housemates' birthdays, like that day or the next day. So I bought a really big birthday cake, and came home to discover that all my other housemates had gone away for a week. So I ate increasingly stale portions of birthday cake by myself. And let me tell you, there is nothing bleaker than eating a week-old birthday cake by yourself for breakfast.
It sounds kind of glorious in a way.
So I've lived a very sad life. Have you got anything to...
I don't think I have... Well, no.
That's convenient.
I certainly do. No, I think it's one of those things where there were definitely things where I thought, and I've gone, oh my God, I am so sad. And yet, when you put me on the spot, I always really struggle to think of any answers for your question.
I'd be really interested to hear from the listeners what's the best sad thing they've ever done with a day, like that is both objectively pathetic but also exactly what they needed to do. Anyway, the reason I asked that question is because my second topic is about something that's very sad and lonely. In 1992, scientists discovered a whale that was calling for a mate, but in a frequency that no other whales could hear, because obviously they float around the ocean and they just sort of call out to other whales. Now, normally, whales hear sort of within a bandwidth of 15 to 20 hertz, and this one was crooning a lonely ballad to any potential mates or just any other whales at 52 hertz, so well outside the range that any other whale could hear.
That's really high pitch for a whale.
Yeah, so maybe it's a sort of a soprano whale.
Yeah.
So they started tracking it, and they've been doing it ever since. So it's, at least 2 decades, it's just been floating in essential nothingness, screaming into a void. Not screaming.
That's really sad.
Every year it makes a migration from Alaska to Mexico in hopes of searching for a mate, but just calls out into the emptiness without any success.
Does it even accidentally bump into any other whales?
Well, no, because although whales are big, the ocean is even bigger, and, statistically, whales, it's not like there's lanes. There are shipping lanes, but the whales tend to ignore them because not only is, the ocean big, but it's also deep.
That is true. I did see a thing, though, recently about the opposite, where a whale...
just crashing into each other.
Well, yeah, it was a narwhal.
They're not real.
They are. They look like unicorns.
They're not real either.
It was one of those which somehow had been separated from its, the rest of its group somehow, yeah. And it ended up being picked up by a group of a different species of whales. I want to say belugas, but I might be wrong.
You want to say belugas because it's a fun word to say. When you say picked up, like, in a grooming way or in a chatting up way?
In a sort of just, oh, well, you're one of us now. Apparently, even though it's like just swimming a lot, like, because basically, again, I'm not an expert in whales, so I can't remember what the other species are called. But they're all like milky white coloured. And then they're all swimming along, just playing with each other. And then there's there's a bunch of like milky white whales, and then just one mottled grey whale with a massive horn sticking out of its face.
I'm so glad you said
just
horn.
Just swimming along with them. Just all like, it's like the exact opposite of the sad whale story. So the universe is in balance. One whale gets extra friends, one gets extra lonely.
I mean, if the whales can get along, why can't we? So that brings us to the end, near enough, of episode 17. Those are our 4 topics done, and if you enjoyed them, then good.
Bully for you.
Yeah, well done. But love to hear your feedback, so get in touch with us in all the usual ways. There's more information at the end of the podcast. So it just leaves it to us to say goodbye. So it's goodbye from me.
Auf Wiedersehen from me.
And apparently we're just picking different languages every episode. So, 再见, au revoir.
Ciao.
Goodbye, mate.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, I've got nothing. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cooking with Grief. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to recommend it to a friend. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email cookingwithgrief@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter. That's @cookingwithgrief. If you'd like to hear more episodes, then please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you've got the time, then it'd be great if you could leave us a review on iTunes. Thank you.